Yep. Good. Hi everybody, welcome to the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined by my co-host Sam Proof. Today we're going out live to all the various places, so if you are watching live, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. Today we're going to be answering your OBS Studio questions. So if you've got any questions about this free and open source live streaming and recording software, let us know in the chat. We'll certainly attempt to answer some of those as we proceed. We do have some that we've collected during the week as well, which we'll cover. But Sam, how are you going? How's your week been?
Good. We have parents in town. My wife's parents are here, and we took a little camping trip. Went out to Joshua Tree, which is basically a desert, if you don't know. I don't know why U2 decided they needed to write an entire album about it. It is hot and windy, extremely both. And one does not cancel out the other for some reason. But no, it was nice. The highlight of that was we found a really good pizza place when our camping stove didn't work. And for those of you following along the cute avalanche progress, we passed the 3,800 watch time hour threshold and are really close to hitting 3,900. So we're almost in our 100-hour countdown to hit 4,000, which, if I'm doing the math right, and I'm fairly optimistic, by this time next week we will hit. So fingers crossed, paws crossed, we'll see what happens. How's things with you, John?
Things are going pretty well. It's felt like a very long week, but it hasn't been a bad week. So, you know, I'm just happy to be here on Saturday in Australia. I realize time zones are a thing. So obviously it may not be Saturday where you are right now, but, you know, I'm sure it's something most people are looking forward to. So that's exciting. I guess the other thing too, and I'm gonna play something, and we're gonna get stuck into those OBS Studio questions. Yeah. So here we go.
Constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. Mm-hmm. So when Johan would get on my counter before, you know, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And Just Kitten Around is available wherever you get your podcasts, also on YouTube, but you can head over to cuteavalanche.com to learn more about that. So,
yeah.
Sam, let's start answering some of these questions. And just a reminder, if you do have an OBS Studio question, throw it in the chat. We'd love to tackle it. But first of all, people have been asking, how can they stream to Kick? And I guess before we even get there, if you can just let us know what Kick is, because I know it's not necessarily everyone's first thought when it comes to live streaming.
Yeah, sure. Kick is a recent player in the live streaming field space. They launched, I don't even remember. They launched, I think, at the end of last year. And it is essentially a Twitch clone. They basically copied all of the sort of categories and a lot of the layout, just changed the brand colors and things like that. There's a little controversy there. They are backed by stake.com, which is, you know, notoriously a gambling site, and they've attracted some very polarizing streamers and things like that. But beyond that, it is a very popular alternative to Twitch now because they are offering a much larger creator split on their monetization, and it's easier to get to their affiliate partner status and things like that. I don't know those numbers offhand, but yeah. So it is no wonder why a lot of streamers have made the move to Kick. And if you want to see, it's pretty simple. If you are familiar with setting up OBS with a stream key or whatnot, this is going to be just finding the stream key. If you're not, I'll walk you through it a little bit slower. So here we go. Once we're over at our Kick page, I'm going to assume you can figure out how to make your own account. You'll click in the top right corner on your avatar and find the creator dashboard. That'll load. On the left-hand nav, you'll find the settings, and I just realized I'm going to turn this off just to make sure for the video purposes that the stream key is in fact blocked. It is. Okay, I can show this. So
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
it will then give you the stream URL and your stream key. You can just hit the 2-square copy icon to do it, or reveal it with the eyes and select the whole thing and copy it. You then jump over to OBS, go into your settings, and actually, again, I can't show this on stream. You'll hit the stream. I should have just done this with a blank profile or whatnot, which I don't think I can make the switch right now. Go to settings. You'll hit the stream tab, which I'm not going to do live. You'll find the 2 fields to enter your ingest URL, I believe is what OBS calls it. It might be server URL, and then your stream key. And those 2 fields that you saw on Kick, you put there, you hit apply, you hit OK, you set up your stream, and you start broadcasting. Kick also has right here built into the stream key page this restream integration to make it even easier. So you can go, if you already have a restream account or create a restream account and you want to multicast, you can click on that. It's the same process. You're going to enter your stream URL and your stream key, set up your stream, and get going. And that's it. That's really as easy as it gets for setting up a stream with Kick.
Nice. And I guess if people are new to Kick, they want to see some content, they can follow Cute Avalanche over there as well, which is kick.com/Cute Avalanche. Yeah. So hi to CG who's joining us in the chat. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Today we're talking all about OBS Studio. We are talking about OBS Studio, but we're answering questions we've received over the last week. If you do have any questions, throw them into the chat and let us know. We'd love to hear from you. The next one is kind of a hard one because we have to make a choice here. So somebody asked, what is your favorite OBS plugin? Do you want to go first with this one, Sam?
Sure. My favorite OBS plugin, I'm actually going to say, and I gave John a hard time about this before because I thought he would pick Vertical, the ATEM Vertical plugin, which I do love. I think I actually would choose hang on, I just have to double check that it's Move and not Motion. I think it's the Motion plugin, actually. There's 2 plugins. They do basically the same thing. But the one I use and prefer, I just have to go into my filters, is in fact the Motion plugin. And Motion just gives you just that next level of production value for, like, you can do some really nice things off the cuff with, like, just right out the gate with OBS as far as like transitioning to scenes and things like that, like fades and slides and stuff. But Motion lets you add that sort of transition element to every source. So if you caught the live broadcast of the Just Kidding Around podcast, when it starts with me here and we have a logo here and some information at the top, those will like slide off individually and up, and I go off the screen, and then like 2 different vertical cameras come in from opposing sides, and it just looks that much better. So I would say the Motion plugin is kind of my favorite right now.
Nice. I should note too that we have actually done an entire episode of this, and it's kind of one of our very earliest. It wasn't even done live. We sort of had this conversation offline and spoke about it. But you can certainly check that out on YouTube or johnlacey.com. I guess, and it's funny you mentioned the Motion one. Originally, you actually mentioned the Move plugin, which is a sort of a similar variation on that.
Yes.
But I guess the thing that I still find incredibly useful, and again, this does depend a little bit on your hardware, but it's this one called the OBS ASIO plugin. And the reason I love that is because I have a Rodecaster Pro, and this is kind of it's an audio input device. It has different inputs. I can bring my phone in via Bluetooth. I can play things on the sound pad. But the thing about this, there are sort of two ways of working with this device. And traditionally, the most basic one, the one that you use in most places, is just whatever the stereo output of that device is, comes into your computer and use it like that. For me, I actually really like to use this OBS ASIO plugin. And the ASIO stands for Audio Stream Input/Output. But the great thing about this is I can actually bring the different components from this device in as their own audio inputs into OBS. And I know it sounds really trivial, but I assure you it's not. For my other stream, I actually have a scene, which is just my start and end scene. And while that's happening, I play some music from the sound pad. And the really important thing about this is that my mic isn't live when I'm doing this. So that way, if I'm nervously muttering to myself before the show starts, the whole world isn't hearing that. So there's all kinds of things you can do with those different inputs. And, maybe you want to record them, maybe you don't want to record them. You can sort of go into the advanced audio settings within OBS and sort of work on that too. I guess, and it's funny, all of mine, when we did this show originally, were about audio. So the other couple of ones I might mention briefly is the waveform visualizer, which sort of gives you that EQ effect, and also scale to sound. So again, on my other live streaming show, which I haven't done in a little while, it actually resizes elements of my screen based on the volume of the audio that I'm playing. And that can be really, really handy for, especially for those intro scenes and stuff. So that's a couple of my favorites. I kind of cheated a little bit there, but I do also really like the vertical plugin. Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, it's really unmatched in terms of the ability to record and stream in horizontal and vertically at the same time. And I guess the other thing too that people don't always appreciate is that you can, it's not just cropping what you've got on the screen. You can actually have completely separate scenes. So it could be that maybe you're branding the vertical version differently to the horizontal version. There's all kinds of possibilities in there. So that's really, really cool.
I would just say with the vertical thing, the mere fact that you are able to customize it makes it really awesome as not just a live streaming tool, but as a recording tool as well. Because, a lot of creators are out there trying to make like a 16:9 and they want to go in and clip it. If you just had that set up off the bat so that it's perfectly, formatted for vertical, you save yourself, hours per video.
And I must admit, I haven't done a lot of this lately, but what I used to do for this show is that I would record a version of me vertically, and then I would put Sam at the top in his horizontal box. And it's difficult to overstate how much time that actually saved me, because I instantly had a layout that I could work with really, really quickly. And I guess sometimes, we don't necessarily want to re-record or, crop, depending on the quality of the things that you've done on video. Some of those, some of the larger quality recordings can be good to stretch, but a lot of the times you're just in a world of pixel pain. Yeah. So I guess that's another thing. We really do like it. And I guess the genuinely mind-boggling thing about that plugin and all the plugins we've mentioned is that they're literally free. Yeah. And I know people sometimes feel like OBS has a bit of a learning curve. And honestly, that is true. But I think, the fact that you don't have to pay for it, that you can use it across multiple different platforms, Mac, Linux, Windows, and the fact that there is this community of people out there developing stuff for it to extend its functionality is just so beautiful. I really appreciate that about the OBS community. Yeah. So this is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today we're answering your OBS Studio questions. So we've received a number of these over the week, but if you do have ones that you'd like to ask us right now, just throw them into the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, so let's I'm actually gonna switch up the order here, Sam. So
Okay.
let's talk about why would we maybe use OBS instead of Restream or StreamYard.
Sure. I think, what Restream and StreamYard do is make streaming accessible, especially if you want to have guests on and things like this show here. I think it makes it really fast and quick, but it has limitations to how nice it can be. And if you're happy with what it is, then you're good. But if there's, points where you're like, man, I wish I could do X, Y, and Z, I guarantee you can do it in OBS.
And I guess there is that sort of trade-off between usability and the ability to customize and really go quite advanced. And I guess for most new streamers, like, I don't, and I feel like I say this a lot, but I don't think people are necessarily showing up for the fancy borders around your web camera or,
Right.
The effects in the background. Ideally, they're showing up for you and your message, but that's not to say you shouldn't think about how you are presenting yourself, regardless of the tools that you're using. And there are kinds of different ways of customizing tools like Restream and StreamYard as well. And we actually, I sort of spoke about some of those branding elements last week on the show. So if you want to head into the archives, you can certainly check that out as well. So it really depends on where you start. But I guess the other thing, and I feel like we mentioned this a lot in this show, because I think it is honestly probably pretty unique to you and I, but we actually use a combination of Restream and OBS for this show. Yeah. And we do that through the magic of the virtual camera. So in a lot of ways, we can set up all kinds of weird, wonderful things on our screen, and I can sort of adjust how different things work. I feel like I've got a button on my stream deck which will, there we go. So, this is literally just in Restream Studio, but I can sort of customize how everything looks on this screen. Obviously, the other thing that's always happening for me is that I'm always in front of a green screen 24/7. Right. And a lot of tools say they've got green screen functionality, but they're really not that great. I don't know. I get the impression, Sam, you probably don't use Microsoft Teams very often, but it has sort of a pretend...
Not if I can help it.
Yeah. It's sort of got a pretend green screen option. And if you move even a little bit, it'll cut off part of your hair, or, you'll suddenly see things behind you that weren't there. And I say that as someone, even with a literal, real green screen, it's still not as good as going through OBS. So, that is really... and Nathan Volt is in the comments, just deeply amused by the fact that I've mentioned Teams. It is kind of a thing for a lot of us out there in day job
corporate
world.
Land.
So,
yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Nathan. Claire is lurking as well. Claire is always lurking. She's not a very good lurker though, because she tells us she's lurking, and then we know.
Excellent.
All right. Okay, cool. So, it depends on where you are in your journey, how much you want to think about the technology. But as Sam says, you do have the ability to customize a lot more of that stuff if you are working within OBS. All right. So this is the video and live streaming show. We're talking all about OBS Studio. We're answering questions we've received over the week. If you've got any, make sure you throw them into the chat there so we can answer them for you. But next, let's and I keep bumping things in Restream, and it's a bit of a nightmare, and I almost left the stream, which is not what you can do when you're in a live show. Okay, so let's talk about and again, I apologize to Sam. I'm changing the order of all these things as we go, but just bear with me. Let's talk about actually running OBS Studio portably. So. Yeah. I guess one thing you need to know about OBS Studio is because of that community of developers that I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of plugins, there are a lot of scripts. And when OBS actually undergoes a new version, sometimes we need to, it's really important that we actually go and check that these things, they still work if we're going to upgrade the software, which is usually a good idea. Yeah. So I guess, there are a few different reasons why we might want to do that, but let's talk about those. And I might share my screen here a little bit. I might even take myself out of this view and we'll maximize it. So again, this is just an article on johnlacey.com if you want to check it out. Before we even get there, I guess, what are the reasons you might want to actually run this portably? you know, you might want to try it out without overriding the existing installation. Again, if you do rely on a particular plugin, you want to make sure it's compatible before you actually commit to that. Number 2, and this is an older article, and this probably doesn't apply now that the vertical plugin actually exists. But previously, I did actually recommend that, you know, if you were recording both vertically and horizontally, you might want to do that in different installations of the software. I probably wouldn't recommend that anymore, but that is kind of a historical artifact, that one. I guess, you know, number 3, and this is one that I do a lot, is that you might want to use OBS Studio to record or stream about OBS Studio, and you need to share a second install of that software. Or, of course, you might want to run a portable version from a USB drive. So again, probably depends a little bit on where you're running it and how you're attempting to run it. But essentially, what you need to do is you need to actually head over to OBS Project and click on Download. So if I just open this up in another tab, this is what you'll normally see when you get to obsproject.com. And you certainly can download installers from this screen, but in this case, because we want to run it remotely, we want to come up to download instead. We want to actually decide which operating system we're using, and then we can actually download the zip file here instead of the installer. So once we've done that, we can open up our file, actually copy those files onto our computer somewhere. And if we go into the bin folder, which is the binary folder, open the 64-bit folder, right-click on obs64.exe, and go create shortcut. Then we can go into the properties. Essentially, the most important thing you need to know is that you need to add this -- portable to the end of the target. So once you do that, you'll be able to run that as its own sort of portable version. So that's certainly possible. And I guess the other thing I should say is that is very clearly for Windows. I don't know how Mac or Linux particularly work in that regard, but if you've got that software and you've tried that, let us know, because we'd love to learn that and share that information as well. Okay, so I think, and again, I'm changing things on the fly so much. Sam's probably really annoyed at me today, but this is just how we roll some weeks on the video and live streaming show. So I think while I catch my breath, Sam, I know that on the Just Kidding Around podcast, that you actually do bring guests into OBS, and that was something that somebody specifically asked about. So talk to us about that one.
Sure. Now, you know, obviously you could use something like Restream or StreamYard, which kind of has that functionality built in. There's a variety of ways to actually do this. You could do, you know, I know a lot of other podcasts that do things like screen capture their Zoom or Discord calls and then just kind of funnel the audio in through desktop audio sources and things like that. You could use Skype as an NDI source, which is actually very nice. I don't know, my computer just didn't like it quite as much. And it seemed resource intensive to do multiple guests that way, but it was very good. It was high quality. There's even entire Skype boxes out there you can buy that we've used in some production companies. I did for Legendary and things like that. I don't know how much that box cost, but I'm sure it was 5 digits. Personally, I've found video.ninja lately, and it's free. It's cloud-based, and I love it. I think it's great. It's, you know, an endless amount of guests could be added this way, and it is extremely customizable. So I'll give you a quick look at that. And yeah, so this is it. This is our dashboard. On the screen prior to this, it asks you to create a room, which I've already done so that we get into here. You can then get this immediately, this invite guest link, which I'll send that over to John real quick if you want to do that. And I'm going to join as well, but I'm going to open up a incognito window and throw myself in one instance of a guest there so you can see how this goes. I'm going to join with my camera. You allow, just with any other thing, we'll throw this to OBS virtual camera. You can see my audio source has already been detected. I'm actually going to turn it off for the point of this, just in case we create some kind of feedback loop. and then your guest would hit start. What's really nice about VDO is in those customizations, I'm not going to show you how this all goes. You can actually put instructions in here as well as like a message for once they get into the studio, which now I'm in the the green room, if you were. So if I flop back over to my dashboard, you'll see me and there's John. I can actually enable myself as the director to show up for my guests, which on John's side, he'll see me. On the side you guys, oh, actually, I get to see John too. So that's guest me on the left, director me on the right, and John. So there we are. That's all of us in there. And it's automatically set to send everybody into scene. So if I copy this scene link, I'm actually going to join from one other source. You can do this on your phone or a PC or a tablet. So there you go. Oh yeah, see, now I'm getting audio. So let's just hang that up. And there we go. So now I have 3 potential guests. You might notice that the guest feed are a little skippy or anything like that. That's actually setting inside VDO so that you're not like destroying your CPU. I can jump over into OBS, which this is going to get weird because we are live streaming and I'm sharing my feed, but you would just set up a browser source. And the link that I copied is the entire room, which you'll see show up in a second. But you can actually get individual guest links as well. So that's interesting. There we go. It's taking just a second to get all 3 of my guests. So that's all 3 people at one time. But if you really want to customize it, you go into OBS Ninja, and right at the bottom of each feed, there's a copy solo view link, and you just put each one of those in as a browser source, and you can make as many guests appear on screen as you want. It lets you do so many other things. So you do have a lot of ability to customize that room. I already have a few of these things turned on, like fade in the videos. So when they first showed up, there was a fade. It should shows display names. So if I go in and add names to the labels, I can do that. That's not my name. And those should show right up on OBS and stuff like that. So let's bring that back up and see. There you go, Sam Proof in that lower one. Your guests can actually enter those as well. You can even prompt them to do it at the beginning. You can force all of these into vertical mode. I'm going to just close that. I can't talk about every single thing because there's just so many. But what I find awesome is that each and every source has both the ability to record local, which is your local as the director, or record remote, or both. So you can be recording all 3 ISOs, which is isolated cameras, as individual videos on your computer. Or when I did Just Kidding Around, I had a laptop up as a co-director, and I had that laptop doing the local record for all of the sources so that I could be recording the OBS version on this computer, just so I didn't max out my CPUs. It's got an endless amount of things. You can easily use this if you use that room group scene as your feed to control who's actually on by like hiding people or turning off their cameras. You can mute people and things like that. If you have like a game show kind of thing, you can blind a guest so that they don't see anything else until you unblind them. So if you had like, what was that old quiz like game show where they reveal somebody from the past, that kind of thing, and you'd be like, who is it? Right. Or you
and
need
I should
to talk
just
about
say,
it.
like on my screen, like I got a little dialogue box that said, the guest has temporarily blocked your view or whatever. So I mean that's really good to know, and it's I must admit I've done nothing with video, and I was really curious to see how this works. And I was watching some videos about this on YouTube earlier in the week, and I've got to be honest, what you've just explained to me was so much more straightforward than a lot of the YouTube videos I watch. So I guess thank you for that, first of all. But I guess, like, in terms of bringing in that group scene, and I might even just I might see if I can bring myself back here. Is it relatively easy to actually bring in one of those cameras as its own individual browser source?
Sure. I mean, it's just as easy as clicking that copy solo view link button at the very bottom. Go back over to OBS. I'll turn off the room. I'm going to throw, nope, wrong button. You hit source, you hit browser. I'm going to go guest 1, which hopefully I haven't used already, which very possibly I have. Nope. Throw that in, adjust my resolution, and so I'm actually the same. You can tell I'm the guest because I have my name there. And then I can do exactly the same thing with John. Let me just run back over to VDO, grab copy solo link, back into here, guest 2. And this is exactly what I did with the podcast, Just Kidding Around. I had my guest Samantha Bell join via VDO. And there's John. Obviously, you would set this all up prior to the show, so you don't have to wait for that second of it going, you want a thing now? Okay. Yeah. There you go. So I'm going to take this off screen so you can just see the OBS, because I actually want to play with this for a second and see if when I hide you. Yeah, so I'm just doing that in VDO, hiding you. I could also do that in OBS, obviously, and I can add John here to get his title at the bottom there. It does so many things. I can even, if I know my guest has multiple mics or multiple cameras, ask. I don't think it'll let me because all of your cameras are being used by OBS, but I could ask it to give me access to the camera, and then they would, as the guest, confirm that. I can change the mic to a different mic. I can adjust the mic levels. I can, if for some reason there's a weird gain or echo or anything like that, I can mess with all of those kind of settings. There's even a weird sort of degaussing button here if you start to get weird. It's not
sort of the motion blur.
Yeah, you get that weird digital pixelation. Like, they have a fix for that. And if John's talking about a video he made or an image he has, I can prompt him to share that file and things like that. So it's really well thought out. And there's nothing I can be like, oh man, I wish this did this. It does more than I could ever ask for.
And I guess, I almost feel like we should probably do a longer show on actually setting up an entire, side-by-side guest show within OBS, because once you've got the, I might even just take that off the screen because it's
I think
now. But anyway, once you've got those two guests as inputs, you can have them side by side. You can have them sort of, a zoomed in side by side. You can have sharing of an image or a screen. You could have somebody in, a mask, maybe a circle on the side. There's all kinds of things you can do. And again, I guess that gets back to the thing that you were saying earlier about, the flexibility of OBS over something like Restream Studio, especially.
Yeah.
I'm just going to really briefly answer this question from Nathan, because I guess, and I might even, I don't know if I've got anything in my... Yeah, I mean, by all means, please, I'd love it if you could check out my website, but I'm going to throw, I'm going to put the YouTube URL in here as well.
Sure.
So admittedly, Sam and I have known each other for a really, really long time, and he's sort of been doing this work really consistently, whereas I kind of dropped off and started again from scratch. So I don't have a lot of subscribers. Nobody really knows who I am. But if you do want to check out my channel, you can head over to youtube.com/@learnlivestreaming. Again, predominantly most of the content that's on there at the moment is this show, and also some podcasting stuff that I'm doing. But I do have a number of different videos about OBS Studio, about live streaming more generally. So I'd love it if you could check that out. That would be awesome. Okay, so this is the Video and Live Streaming Show. I'm John Lacey, and I'm joined, as always, by Sam Proof. I say as always. You weren't here last week, Sam. I meant to ask you about that. Tell me all about the exciting things that you were doing at VidCon.
Oh, so this, it's a weird side note because it's not really live streaming related at this point. But in the 13th hour, we got contacted by Kitten Rescue, who we volunteer for, and they said that VidCon, via Nathan the Cat Lady, reached out and wanted to do a pop-up cat cafe at VidCon in the hotel, the Hyatt Hotel. For anyone who knows, there is a dedicated hotel and is the only hotel that actually has security clearance to VidCon, so you can freely walk between the hotel and the convention center, because otherwise it's like trying to get into an armored castle. It's crazy, the security that event has nowadays. But yeah, so they put a call out to all of the fosters and asked for anyone who could bring kittens to the event. And of course, my wife was like, well, it's VidCon. Sam would love to do that, before even asking me. And so the kitten rescue organizer got in touch with me, and I was like, sure, I'll do that. We'll bring some cats down. And I fully intended on actually doing some videos while I was there, to the point where I built a very nerdy setup that both utilized OBS and the vertical plugin to maximize things. But that didn't end up happening, just because of the sheer madness of what happened at VidCon, which, first off, it was supposed to be about 2 hours to drive there. It took almost 4 hours to actually get there. There was a point in our trip where it was like 55 minutes to destination. That stayed on screen for an hour. We were constantly 55 minutes away from the destination for a full hour. And when we finally got there, the instructions we received first led us to the wrong Hyatt, because there's two that are apparently 3 blocks away from each other for whatever reason. So second, when we actually got to the correct one, it had been implied that there was a tent we just kind of drive up to and get our credentials and park and get in. This was not the case. The tent reception area was removed from the driveway area, so I jumped out, and then security forced Amanda to drive away. So she was in a panic, because there's nowhere to park in that area. Like, you can't, he was like, go park on the street. It's a no parking zone. So she had to kind of find a place not too far away, while I then tried to explain to the reception people what the hell was going on, who we were, and that they had to get us in. And that whole process probably took an additional 40 minutes. But once we finally got up to the Hyatt, the lounge, it was the Laguna Lounge. It was really cool. They treated us like absolute royalty. Like, we might as well have been Mr. Beast. We came in with the 3 kittens and 2 bottle babies. So the 3 kittens were freely available for people to play with and pick up and stuff. And then the bottle babies were just there because they needed to get fed. But we did Amanda did like a bottle feeding demo. There was a ton of influencers constantly coming in and out of the lounge. There was free coffee and stuff like that, and cookies and scones. And they actually, thankfully, got us like meals for free, which was excellent. I got a very good brew house burger or something like that. It had a beer cheese. And yeah, there was tons of people taking videos and pictures, and I was so frazzled by the whole experience that I pretty much only promoted Kitten Rescue and very much did not promote Cute Avalanche, because there was already so many other brands happening in there that I was just like, it's a mess. I think if they're going to do anything like this again, I need Kitten Rescue to actually see something from it, which so far I've only seen 1, maybe 2 videos posted on Instagram. So if you find anything, you see our cats, tag me so I can point it to them. But yeah, I didn't recognize almost anyone that came through except for my personal friends, Rod Kim from our RKVC, and Ali Spagnolia, who has been on several of the Mob Crush shows that Rod had hosted, and Mike. Oh my God, Mike's name is completely slipping out of my head right now. But he created Tiny Sponsor and a few other things. And there was a guy who I know is a very influential mermaid man. I don't know his name, but I had seen him when I was trying to look up something about Nathan the Cat Lady, who also attended his own event. But yeah, it was cute and fun.
I don't
and
think
crazy.
I've ever actually heard anybody use the words "a very influential mermaid man" before. But I mean, clearly there was a lot going on at VidCon. Obviously I'm on the other side of the planet. Even just a little bit of glimpse I saw on social media seemed a little overwhelming. But I mean, it was cool that you got out there and hopefully, spreading the good words about fostering those kittens.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important part. I know there was another Rescue Stray Cat Alliance that had been there the previous day, and from what I heard, all of their cats got adopted. A lot of the kitten rescue ones I don't think were quite ready to be adopted, our fosters especially. So I'm not sure if any adoptions happened on our day or the following day, which Kitten Rescue was there as well. But it was interesting. The whole thing was put on by Brand Army, and I was completely unfamiliar with them, but we'll take a look. Maybe we'll join their army in the future.
Okay, this is the video and live streaming show. We're answering OBS Studio questions this week. I've got one coming up about live comments, so we'll check that out next.
Looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video, and it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm-up, and I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
Okay, and of course that was a shameless plug for my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle. And again, if you want to learn more about that, you can head over to johnlacey.com. But let's actually okay, cool. All right, let's talk about comments. So I've got a lot of things going on in my computer at the moment, so just bear with me for a second. But essentially, like, how can we actually bring in comments into OBS Studio? There are a number of different ways of doing this. I kind of want to talk about my favorite way, which is actually by the same developer as the Video Ninja thing that Sam just demonstrated. And again, I think is his name Daniel? Am I remembering that correctly?
I'm not positive. If you would ask me straight out, I think I would have said Steve, but
Steve? Anyway,
find it.
We'll see if we can do that. I'll try and talk you through this, and hopefully I won't make too big a mess of it. But let's check it out. So again, this is another article on johnlacey.com. I've recorded a video about this, and I haven't had a chance to edit it. But I just want to talk you through this. And again, in the same way that Sam was talking about streaming to Kick, there are certain things that you don't want to share in a live stream, like the API key. So there are elements of here I want to talk to you conceptually rather than show you exactly what's going on here. But essentially, this is the Social Stream Ninja. It's basically a browser extension. So this way we can bring comments directly into OBS, and this works with a whole bunch of different programs. I guess the main thing I wanted to note about this is that if you are streaming to LinkedIn, and I know that's not the normal place that a lot of people go to by default, but that is actually a place where I do share a lot of content. So, and Sam's just confirming that it's actually Steve. So thank you, Steve. I'm sorry for getting your name wrong. We do really appreciate what you do, and we love these tools and we use them, and we probably need to send you some money because this stuff is amazing, and you're offering it for free. But essentially, like, what happens is that if we go and check out the social stream documentation, in fact, there's probably the URL, which I don't know if you can see very clearly, but it literally says Steve's Helper App. So hi, Steve. We could have saved ourselves a little bit of trouble there. So essentially what you can do if you're interested in using this, and this is at docs.video.ninja, but again, if you head over to johnlacey.com, you can check that out. All you really want to do is come over to Social Stream Ninja. This will take us over to the GitHub page, and we can download this and basically just uninstall it, uncompress it and install it on your computer, which just means copying it somewhere on your computer. we come into our browser, and again, I wish I had some more pictures in here, but essentially what we want to do is add this to our browser. So if I go up to extensions, and I can go to, I think it's manage extensions. Essentially what you want to do is actually come to load unpacked and just nominate where that actually lives on your computer. And what I like to do after that is just make sure that I come in and I like to pin this. So at the moment it's already pinned, so it's giving me the option unpin, but I always like to have it here. And that way, basically what happens is that depending on what you're using, in this case, I've got the Restream chat open here and I can see a couple of things. I just want to make sure this is enabled. And then once we do that, we can actually bring this in a couple of different ways into OBS. So the first one is to actually add the streaming chat doc to OBS. So this is relatively straightforward. If you go into the plugin options, it'll give you a URL to copy and paste into here. Once you do that, you'll actually have a section on the, I was going to say it's on the left-hand side. It's not always on the left-hand side, but again, let me just show you. This will be a bit of Inception. Yeah, I hate that. But essentially over here, I've got this dockable section here, which will have some of the comments. I'm going to get rid of that. This is actually the reason why I do often run multiple versions of OBS, because I hate that Inception. But anyway, be that as it may, we can do that. And basically, the instructions are on here. It's relatively easy. It's really just a browser source that you can add in here. Yep. And you've also got the option to add the featured chat overlay. So basically, all this means is that when you click on one of those chat messages, it will show it on the screen. And again, it's just another overlay. There's some instructions on there on how to do that. It's always a good idea. In fact, here's probably a better image for this. So over here, we've got the chat, the Ninja Chat doc. And again, you can actually dock that wherever you like. You can move it around. You can put it on a different screen. It's a good idea to actually trigger a test chat just to make sure it's working before you go live. And when you click on it, that'll show up. You might want to think about where you're positioning that within your scene, because sometimes it might obscure you. It might obscure other things. It might be too large for the screen, especially if... I mean, I should say that this plugin does a really good job of actually, if it's a 3-line long chat, it will sort of make it fit, which is really cool. Yeah. You can do that as well. You can also add the whole chat to OBS Studio. I don't really recommend this because it only takes one person to write something offensive and it's burnt into your video for the rest of time. Yeah. But certainly there are ways of doing that as well. And I guess and again, because I was talking about LinkedIn Live specifically, you can actually use this plugin with just YouTube. You can use it with Twitch directly. But if you are using LinkedIn Live, you do kind of need to go via Restream or a similar chat service. So those are actually just some of the different ways that we can actually work with this. So, I mean, it was just I really love this. And I've been using this for at least a year. And I've never really had any problems with it. It is one of those things that you do want to go in and check periodically to see if there's been an update. And every time they do update it, there are more and more features, and you can do things with sort of green screen. You can change how they appear. You can always add a little bit of CSS if you're a bit of a web developer as well.
Yeah. Yeah, much like video, it has a lot of options to sort of customize it. And, you can turn on whether it shows platforms and all of that kind of thing. I believe you can set it up so there's 2 different instances, so you can have a slightly different one on your vertical setup as opposed to your normal setup. Mm-hmm. I'm curious because with VDO you can have a co-director come in and do stuff. I haven't tried this, but does Social Ninja allow for a remote person to control what comments are on screen?
I don't think so. I think they would physically need to be the person sort of operating this. So I mean, I guess if you were to combine the chat functionality and the video, maybe the producer could be the one running the whole show and bring you in as a guest within your own live stream. But yeah, I don't think it's really designed to be triggered remotely in that fashion. Yeah. Whereas, in Restream Studio, like I mean, I've certainly added Sam as a producer to this show, so he can turn on or off anything here. So we could also have a third party that isn't necessarily even on camera or a mic operating that. And To be really honest with you, when you first start live streaming, you realize very, very quickly how you are wearing a lot of hats and there are a lot of moving parts. And sometimes it really is good to just make sure that there's someone in the chat going, checking on the chat and sort of saying, hey, you missed this question. Can you please answer it or whatever?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to do this for a really petty reason, but Nathan Volden, I hope he's being sincere and not sarcastic, but he writes, I like John's red carpet background with his logo repeated on it. Only a week ago, somebody I know personally was like, "That's just terrible. Never use that again." And I'm like, "Oh, well, thanks for all your feedback." I mean, I don't really use that anymore because I thought it was a little bit too busy. But I do, I like putting my logo on things. Obviously, it's on this shirt as well. But yeah, I appreciate that feedback if it wasn't sincere. I mean, who knows in the text comments, but there you go. It's funny because there are all kinds of people, and I don't mean this to be a nasty comment, but there are so many people that aren't creating any content. They aren't live streaming. They aren't making videos. They'll give you all the feedback in the world, and you're like, yeah, thanks for that. When you actually start producing something, let me know, and I might be more open to that feedback. But thanks. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent I didn't expect to go on. So I guess, like Sam, I'm going to throw one more question at you right now. So where do we find OBS Studio plugins?
Oh, yeah. So if you go to the OBS website, which is openbroadcastsoftware.com. Is that right? Jeez.
Or
is it project?
Oh, OBS Project, sorry.
In there. Yeah, obsproject.com. You can find a plugin section. So, gosh,
I think it's on the forum from memory. There we go.
That sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah, they also have scripts in there, which are slightly different. But yeah, you can go in and find them that way. I almost always just start from Google and say OBS plugin, whatever kind of plugin I'm trying to find, and then it'll bring me back to here. There is also, and I'm not sure how, if it's still being used and upgraded, but there is or was a third-party app called Starscape Creator Studio that did sort of keep tabs on all of the new plugins, what plugins you had in your OBS, and it would tell you when you needed to upgrade new ones. I haven't used it in a while because when the ATEM vertical plugin came out, it was not part of that system, and it started getting confusing, honestly.
Funnily enough, that Starscape, I should say, creator, is something we spoke about on our plugin show. And I was just looking at my show notes and I just hit the button to go to that link and it's saying the site can't be reached. So I don't know if maybe that's no longer around. But I mean, it was a great idea. And I guess that's the thing. Like, it's depending on the plugin, some of them will have installers that you download and run. Some of them you do actually need to open up some zip files and move folders and files to different parts of your installation. So
yeah, that is definitely an important thing to know about those plugins. So if you have not, if you've downloaded an OBS plugin and it is not an installer, you definitely are going to need a quick walkthrough. There's plenty on YouTube that'll take you through it. It's not too complicated, a little more complicated on a Mac because you have to kind of right click in the application itself to find the packet contents, which on a PC is just like, this is just a folder that's available. You can do this. So
I must admit, I went to discuss Starscape.live, and it looks like they may have been bought by somebody else and they've got a new program, which I can't even tell you what it is by looking. But anyway, that's interesting nonetheless. But I mean, certainly, if you are sort of interested in extending that functionality within OBS, head over to OBS Project. And I should say too, unfortunately, we live in a world where there are bad actors and there are people trying to scam other people. So make sure if you are downloading OBS Project that you do go to obsproject.com and actually get it from here, because there have unfortunately been some malware-y type things try to get some footing here. But certainly, if you go to the website, head over to the forum. We've got the OBS Studio plugins. There are a whole bunch of these. Depending on what you're looking for, you can certainly check these out. I guess the thing I would keep in mind is just like how recently have they been updated?
Yes.
Because if they haven't been updated in years, they may not work very well. So that's another thing. You can also see the ratings, but certainly like we can click in, like even the gradient source. Like I like this one. This is quite straightforward thing in a web development sense. So. But certainly, if you want to bring in just the gradients that maybe you use in your branding elements, this is a really cool way of doing it. Again, that's something you can do. There are all kinds of plugins here. Again, if you're just starting though, I would sort of encourage you to think more about the basics. So, are you in your scene? Can people hear you well? What are those basics? But certainly this is the power, I think, of this software, is that it is so extendable. So Nathan is such a character. So he's saying Sam's background is a set. I like it though. It almost looks real. The great thing about Sam's background, and I've mentioned this on previous shows, but he set this up so the lights in his background work automagically, and he doesn't remember where he set these up. So there's a very good chance that, like, I don't know, in the next minute or two, it's all going to turn itself off, and it'll look really weird and for a second there. But, I mean, it's a cool setup, and those RGB lights are certainly something that a lot of people really, really love. So, yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, Sam. So I guess, like, if you are watching this later on and you have OBS Studio questions, please let us know, because we're definitely going to continue to talk about this software. It is, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say it's Sam and my favorite piece of software out there in the world. So we definitely will be talking about it more. If there are particular tutorials, if there are things that you're stuck with that you want help with, please let us know wherever you're watching this, and we'll certainly try to pick up that thread again. But Sam, if people want to catch up with you and learn all the awesome things that you're doing at the moment, where should they go?
Yeah, you can find all my links at samproof.tv. I'm mostly doing things at Cute Avalanche, which is Twitch channel these days, but occasionally you'll find me on twitch.tv/samproof talking about stuff like this or playing games.
Nice. And yeah, so if you do want to check out all the Cute Avalanche stuff, including just kidding around, cuteavalanche.com is the way to go. Again, if you like reading articles about OBS Studio, have I got a treat for you? You can head over to johnlacey.com. I guess the other thing too is that if you scroll to the bottom of any of the pages on my site, there are some social links. So I predominantly hang out on YouTube and LinkedIn, but I am in a lot of different places. So, if you're there and you want to connect with me, by all means, reach out. I'd love to hear from you. So Sam, I guess, is there one thing that okay. I'm loving Nathan's comments. Nathan needs to come every single week. So Nathan asked the question, have you guys met in person? No, we haven't. And I must admit, in this slightly pandemic world in which we live, it's probably not going to happen, because I don't really leave my house anymore.
That's a long flight. It's like 14 or 15 hours, man. I'm not willing to sit in a tin can that long.
But I mean, hilariously, I met Sam through a then mutual friend on Stickam, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. I have no sense of time anymore, but it's really interesting because and it's funny, I don't even know that person anymore. That was the person that introduced us. But it's been a wild ride, and a lot of it has to do with the technology and the live streaming. So that's really cool. And what do you know? There go the lights, just as predicted. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you've got any suggestions about things you'd like us to see cover in future, let us know. We'd love to have that feedback. But until next week, we'd have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, have a good one, everyone. Question for the future: how do I lights?